The GameCube is a home video game console released by Nintendo in Japan on September 14, 2001, in North America on November 18, 2001, in Europe on May 3, 2002, and in Australia on May 17, 2002. The sixth-generation console is the successor to the Nintendo 64 and competed with Sony Computer Entertainment's PlayStation 2 and Microsoft's Xbox. The GameCube is the first Nintendo console to use optical discs as its primary storage medium. The discs are similar to the mini-DVD format, as a result of their smaller size and the console's small disc compartment. The system was not designed to play standard DVDs or audio CDs. The console supports online gaming for a small number of titles via the broadband or modem adapter and connects to the Game Boy Advance via the link cable, allowing players to access exclusive in-game features using the handheld as a second screen and controller. Contemporary reception of the GameCube was generally positive. Some praised the console's extensive software library and high-quality games, while others criticized its exterior design and lack of features. Nintendo sold 21.74 million GameCube units worldwide before it was discontinued in 2007. Its successor, the Wii, was released in November 2006. History. Dr. Yen has assembled at ARTX one of the best teams of 3D graphics engineers on the planet. Howard Lincoln in 1997, a graphics hardware design company called ARTX was launched. Staffed by 20 engineers who had previously worked at SGI on the design of the Nintendo 64's graphics hardware. The team was led by Dr. Wei Yen, who had been SGI's head of Nintendo operations, the department responsible for the Nintendo 64's fundamental architectural design. Partnering with Nintendo in 1998, ARTX began the complete design of the system logic and of the graphics processor of Nintendo's sixth-generation video game console, reportedly bearing the early internal code name of N2000. At Nintendo's press conference in May 1999, the console was first publicly announced as Project Dolphin, the successor to the Nintendo 64. At the conference, Nintendo's Howard Lincoln said of ARTX, "This company is headed up by Dr. Wei Yen, the man who was primarily responsible for the N64 graphics chip. Dr. Yen has assembled at ARTX one of the best teams of 3D graphics engineers on the planet." Subsequently, Nintendo began providing development kits to game developers. Nintendo also formed a strategic partnership with IBM for the production of Dolphin CPU, codenamed Gecko. ARTX was acquired by ATI in April 2000, whereupon the graphics processor design had already been mostly completed by ARTX and was not overtly influenced by ATI. In total, ARTX team co-founder Greg Buckner recalled that their portion of the console's hardware design timeline had arced from inception in 1998 to completion in 2000. Of ATI's acquisition of ARTX, an ATI spokesperson said, "ATI now becomes a major supplier to the game console market via Nintendo. The Dolphin platform is reputed to be king of the hill in terms of graphics and video performance with 128-bit architecture." The console was announced as the Nintendo GameCube at a press conference in Japan on August 24, 2000, abbreviated as NGC in Japan and GCN in North America. Nintendo unveiled its software lineup for the sixth-generation console at E3 2001, focusing on 15 launch titles, including Luigi's Mansion and Star Wars Rogue Squadron 2, Rogue Leader. Several titles that were originally scheduled to launch with the console were delayed. It is also the first console in the company's history not to accompany a Mario platform title at launch. Long prior to the console's launch, Nintendo had developed and patented an early prototype of motion controls for the GameCube, with which developer Factor 5 had experimented for its launch titles. An interview quoted Greg Thomas, Sega of America's VP of Development, as saying, "What does worry me is Dolphin's sensory controllers, which are rumored to include microphones and headphone jacks, because there's an example of someone thinking about something different. These motion control concepts would not be deployed to consumers for several years, until the Wii Remote." Prior to the Nintendo GameCube's release, Nintendo focused resources on the launch of the Game Boy Advance, a handheld game console and successor to the original Game Boy and Game Boy Color. As a result, several titles originally destined for the Nintendo 64 console were postponed in favor of being early releases on the GameCube. The last first-party title in 2001 for the Nintendo 64 was released in May, a month before the Game Boy Advance's launch and 6 months before the GameCube's, emphasizing the company's shift in resources. Concurrently, Nintendo was developing software for the GameCube which would provision future connectivity between it and the Game Boy Advance. Certain game titles, such as The Legend of Zelda, Four Swords Adventures and Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles, would have the ability to use the handheld as a secondary screen and controller when connected to the console via a link cable. Nintendo began its marketing campaign with the catchphrase, "The Nintendo Difference," at the E3 reveal. The goal was to distinguish itself from the competition as an entertainment company. Later advertisements push the slogan, "Born to Play," and video game commercials feature a rotating cube animation that morphs into a GameCube logo and ends with a voice whispering, "GameCube." The GameCube launched in Japan on September 14, 2001. Approximately 500,000 units were shipped in time to retailers. The console was scheduled to launch 2 months later in North America on November 5, 2001, but the date was pushed back in an effort to increase the number of available units. The console eventually launched in North America on November 18, 2001, with over 700,000 units shipped to the region. Other regions followed suit the following year, beginning with Europe in the second quarter of 2002. On April 22, 2002, veteran third-party Nintendo console developer Factor 5 announced its 3D audio software development kit for GameCube developers. Titled MU6. In collaboration with Dolby Laboratories, it provides motion-based surround sound encoded as Dolby Pro Logic 2 hardware. The Dolphin platform is reputed to be king of the hill in terms of graphics and video performance with 128-bit architecture. ATI Howard Cheng, technical director of Nintendo Technology Development, said the company's goal was to select a simple RISC architecture to help speed development of games by making it easier on software developers. IGN reported that the system was designed from the get-go to attract third-party developers by offering more power at a cheaper price. Nintendo's design doc for the console specifies that cost is of utmost importance, followed by space. Hardware partner Artex's Vice President Greg Buckner stated that their guiding thought on the console's hardware design was to target the developers rather than the players, and to look into a crystal ball and discern what's going to allow the Miyamoto-sans of the world to develop the best games. We thought about the developers as our main customers. In particular for GameCube, we spent 3 years working with Nintendo of America and with all sorts of developers, trying to understand the challenges, needs, and problems they face. First among these is the rising cost of development. The GameCube can see high performance without too much trouble. It isn't a quirky design, but a very clean one. It was important we didn't require jumping through hoops for high performance to be achieved. On top of that, it is rich in features, and we work to include a dream group of technical features that developers requested. Greg Buckner, Artex's vice president, initiating the GameCube's design in 1998. Nintendo partnered with ARTX for the system logic and the GPU, and with IBM for the CPU. IBM designed a PowerPC-based processor for the next-generation console, known as Gecko, which runs at 485 MHz and features a floating-point unit capable of 1.9 GFLOPS. Designed at 0.18 microns and described as an extension of the IBM PowerPC architecture, Gecko features IBM's reportedly then unique Hopper-based chip manufacturing technology. Codenamed Flipper, the GPU runs at 162 MHz and, in addition to graphics, manages other tasks through its audio and input-output processors. The GameCube introduced a proprietary mini-DVD optical disc format as the storage medium for the console, capable of storing up to 1.5 GB of data. The technology was designed by Matsushita Electric Industrial, which utilized a proprietary encryption scheme, different from the content scramble system found in standard DVDs, to prevent unauthorized reproduction. The Famicom Data Recorder, Famicom Disk System, SNES-CD, and 64DD had explored various complementary storage technologies. But the GameCube was Nintendo's first console to move away from cartridge-based media altogether. The GameCube's 1.5 GB mini-disc have sufficient room for most games, although a few games require an extra disc, higher video compression, or removal of content present in versions on other consoles. By comparison, the PlayStation 2 and Xbox, also 6th-generation consoles, both use 8.5 GB dual-layer DVDs. Like its predecessor, the Nintendo 64, GameCube models were produced in several different color motifs. The system launched in indigo, the primary color shown in advertising and on the logo, and in jet black. A year later, Nintendo released a Platinum Limited Edition GameCube, which uses a silver color scheme for both the console and controller. A spice orange-colored console was eventually released as well, only in Japan, though the color scheme could be found on controllers released in other countries. Nintendo developed stereoscopic 3D technology for the GameCube, and one launch title, Luigi's Mansion, supports it. However, the feature was never enabled outside of development. 3D televisions were not widespread at the time, and it was deemed that compatible displays and crystals for the add-on accessories would be too cost-prohibitive for the consumer. Another unofficial feature are 2 audio Easter eggs that can be invoked during the console's startup routine. When the power is activated with the Z button on the Player 1 controller held down, a more whimsical startup sound is heard in place of the standard one. With 4 controllers connected, holding down the Z button on all 4 simultaneously produces a ninja-like tune at startup. Storage: the GameCube features 2 memory card ports for saving game data. Nintendo released 3 official memory card options: Memory Card 59 in gray, Memory Card 251 in black, and Memory Card 1019 in white. A few games were known to have compatibility issues with the Memory Card 1019, and at least 2 games have save issues with any size. Memory cards with larger capacities were released by third-party manufacturers. The memory card numbers indicated the number of save blocks available on the card, and each number is 5 subtracted from some power of 2. This suggests that 5 save blocks are devoted to some sort of system information. Simple math can be used to find out that each save block is a page of data. Asterisk x equals 64. X equals controller. Nintendo learned from its experiences, both positive and negative, with the Nintendo 64's 3-handled controller design, and went with a 2-handled. handlebar design for the GameCube. The shape was made popular by Sony's PlayStation controller released in 1994 and its follow-up DualShock series of gamepads introduced in 1997. In addition to vibration feedback, the DualShock series was well known for having two analog sticks to improve the 3D experience in games. Nintendo and Microsoft designed similar features in the controllers for their 6th generation consoles. But instead of having the analog sticks parallel to each other, they chose to stagger them by swapping the positions of the directional pad and left analog stick. The GameCube controller features a total of 8 buttons, 2 analog sticks, a D-pad, and an internal rumble motor. The primary analog stick is on the left with the D-pad located below and closer to the center. On the right are 4 buttons. A large, green, A button in the center, a smaller red, B button to the left, an X button to the right, and a Y button at the top. Below and to the inside is a yellow, C analog stick, which often serves a variety of in-game functions, such as controlling the camera angle. The start/pause button is located in the middle, and the rumble motor is encased within the center of the controller. On the top of the controller are 2 pressure-sensitive trigger buttons marked L and R. Each essentially provides 2 functions, one analog and one digital. As the trigger is depressed, it emits an analog signal which increases the more it is pressed in. Once fully depressed, the trigger clicks, registering a digital signal that can be used for a separate function within a game. There is also a purple, digital button on the right side marked Z. Unique to the GameCube is the controller's prominent size and placement of the A button. Having been the primary action button in past Nintendo controller designs, it was given a larger size and more centralized placement for the GameCube. The rubberized analog stick in combination with the controller's overall button orientation was intended to reduce the dreaded Nintendo thumb, a term used to describe pain in any part of the hands, wrists, forearms, and shoulders as a result of long-term play. In 2002, Nintendo introduced the Wavebird wireless controller, the first wireless gamepad developed by a first-party console manufacturer. The RF-based wireless controller is similar in design to the standard controller. It communicates with the GameCube by way of a wireless receiver dongle connected to one of the console's controller ports. Powered by 2 AA batteries, which are housed in a compartment on the underside of the controller. The Wavebird lacks the vibration functionality of the standard controller. In addition to the standard inputs, the Wavebird features a channel selection dial, also found on the receiver, and an on-off switch. An orange LED on the face of the controller indicates when it is powered on. The controller is available in light gray and platinum color schemes. Compatibility: the GameCube is unable to play games from other Nintendo home consoles, but with the Game Boy Player attachment, it is able to play Game Boy, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance titles. The GameCube's successor, the Wii, supports backward compatibility with GameCube controllers, memory cards, and games. However, later versions of the Wii, including the Family Edition, released in 2011, and the Wii Mini Edition, released in 2012, dropped support for all GameCube hardware. Panasonic Q, a hybrid version of the Nintendo GameCube with a commercial DVD player, called Q, was developed by Panasonic as part of the deal struck with Nintendo to develop the optical drive for the original GameCube hardware. Featuring a completely revised case, the Q overcomes the size limitation of the original GameCube's mini DVD tray by adding a commercial DVD-sized tray, among other hardware revisions. Released exclusively to Japan in December 2001, low sales resulted in the Q being discontinued in December 2003.